I am actually doing these Ask Dr. Nikki's from a bar in Redfern. You can see behind me there's some different scenery. Okay, so we will get into it though, before everyone starts arriving for drinks. Dear Dr. Nikki, I'm a 26-year-old woman and I'm horrible at dating but great at casual hookups. I find I can get into these sexual scenarios easily but really struggle with dating help. I actually find that this is a common issue for people. Sometimes people have the opposite. They're great at dating, but maybe they have various beliefs around sex and that stops them from going further and maybe hooking up with someone. Or maybe they have these negative backwards beliefs that hooking up with someone casually is maybe wrong or shameful. But then you get these people that I call it the sex facade. Sometimes it's actually easier to be the sex person, and trust me, I'm a sexologist, I know this one quite well. It's easier to talk about sex. It's easier to sometimes even have sex than be vulnerable and raw and open, which is something you have to do when you're dating. You know, it's quite confrontational sometimes, there's awkward moments of silence. You know, it was always really easy for me, obviously, to talk about the subject of sex when dating. I study it for a living, but it's also something that would get me attention. You know, you can be that sex person. Now, this is what can sometimes happen when it comes to casually hooking up. It's a way of being in a safe zone. You know, I know how to have sex, I know how to hook up. I don't actually have to be vulnerable. For some people, vulnerability is required with sex. For other people, it's just sex. It's a bit of fun, it's a bit of pleasure, and it's actually not about being intimate and vulnerable. So therefore, it's easier than sitting across the table in front of somebody and talking about yourself or what you want from a relationship or you want from a dating situation. That might sound bizarre to some people, but it might make a lot of sense to others. So I would actually say you need to challenge yourself as to whether you're taking yourself off the dating market by putting yourself in the safe zone in the casual sex world. You know, are you only putting yourself out there for casual hookups? And by that I mean, what dating apps are you on? What are you saying on your dating apps? What are you saying when you meet people, when you're having that banter with them? Is it more along the lines of something sexual because that feels safe? And also, it's easier to not be rejected when you're pushing sex out there. If it's just a casual hookup, then there's less chance of actually being rejected. When you then have to put yourself out there in the dating world, sometimes it increases the chance of rejection of, is he going to call me back after this? Am I going to get a second date? Is this going to be into a third date? There's a lot of anxiety around that. But it might be that you're taking yourself out of that scenario and putting yourself into the casual sex space because it's easier and it's a better place to hide. So even though it might feel a little bit awkward and daunting and you have to be vulnerable, I would encourage you to try dating without sex. So it might feel like things are moving forward and you want to jump into bed and it feels great, but maybe try withholding for a little bit and get to know that person, but also put yourself in a position where you have to show vulnerability and intimacy. You know, talk about emotions, talk about things that you're passionate about. Have a look at where you're dating. You know, are there apps that you're on that maybe you can switch apps? Choose an app that is more about forming a connection than just jumping into bed. This isn't saying that you have to take yourself out of the casual sex world forever, but this is an experiment for you to put yourself into the dating world for real and not use sex as that safety zone, as that thing where you don't necessarily feel rejected, and actually put yourself out there in that vulnerable space and see if you can form a connection without sex. It also goes for talking about sex. You know, it can be really easy to get people's attention when you talk about sex. Trust me again. So try not have those kind of conversations on dates. Talk about you. Show them who you really are. Show them how you feel. Show them what you're interested in. And maybe there might be some grounds of commonality and there's something to talk about and you realize you get along. Just try and see what the difference is between putting yourself in that position and just going into the casual sex world. So I hope that helps. Now, if you have an Ask Dr. Nikki question, make sure you jump onto my Facebook page and you can ask me anything. Bye.